Hi guys, welcome back to Mythical Creature Comforts. Yeah, I know it's been like 3 weeks and I'm sorry. I am, honest and truly. However, did warn you this was gonna happen. What with the little demon spawn running around and when we're unable to take her out because of what I lovingly refer to as the spring flu, which is basically when the changing of winter to spring happens and everybody gets sick. It's kind of awesome. Anyhoozle! So, this week we're talking about mermaids again. Why are we talking about mermaids again? Well, because I spent 14 and a half minutes last time gushing about mermaids into the pop culture references, and we never got to my personal thoughts, other than touching on it here and there. Alright, so, that's all out of the way. Personal thoughts on mermaids. They're awesome. Moving on. Personally, the idea of the mermaid could work, but they need some tweaks. You could either have the mermaids having gills, which would make them more in line of sharks than whales and dolphins for the whole species thing. Or you could give them amphibian lungs. Hear me out. Frogs are amphibians, as we know, and they can live both in and out of water. Doesn't really seem to make a difference to them. So in theory, you could use that same concept for how mermaids work, because the boobs make them appear to be mammal, because not very many other species have mammary glands and boobs such as, well, humans and apes do, but mostly humans. Even apes aren't really booby boobs, you know. Moving on. So the other part of mermaids, because you've got boobs, usually covered by seashells or starfish, which that's a kinky mermaid right there, especially if those boobs actually function. Moving on. Most mermaids, you're basic. You have your human-esque portion, and then you have the fish portion, which they're either depicted with or less often without the scales, which is possible. I had somebody actually argue this with me, and there are fish and aquatic animals in the ocean that don't have scales. There are, I promise you. Sharks, for one, don't really have scales. Whales and dolphins and other aquatic mammals don't have scales. Granted, the whales and dolphins have hair all over the place, so there's that. Now, I'm not saying that all mermaids would not have the scales, because obviously some probably would, depending on where they're from, the species, that kind of thing. But again, we're also getting into the realm of, because they have boobs, they are technically, at least from a visual standpoint, mammal. Which, again, unless we give them like amphibian lungs, because they aren't usually given the gills, which I'm not even sure if the gills would be on the throat, to be honest. Fish, their gills are on their throat, but that's because that's pretty much where their lung things are, is right there in their head, their streamlined body. Whereas with mermaids, if you're going to give them gills, they would probably, if their anatomy is similar to humans on the inside, probably be more like here on the ribs. You know, like direct conduits to where the lungs would be. Not a huge fan of the idea of gills on the side, but that's probably just an aesthetics thing. So my own merfolk, I never actually go into details on what it is that allows them to breathe underwater. They do not have gills, though. The mermaids don't have gills. Remember I said that if you ever read any of my books in the future. I actually have, in one story, 2 different races of merfolk-ish people. One is the actual merfolk. The other are called the Croata. Because that's how I pronounce it. That's how I pronounce it. My friend who I'm writing these particular race for the most part with the exception of the little stories that I'm writing on my own that involve them, we can discuss how to actually pronounce it, but I pronounce it the Croata. The Croata, the way I've described them, they're similar to the mermaids in the Harry Potter books. Similar, but not exact. In that they do actually have the gills, and they do have... Their face is still human-esque, except they have scales coming up from the sides, and their hair isn't just hair. There's also seaweed that grows out of their scalp, and all that fun stuff. They also have wrist fins that have barbs on them, right? Think, if you've seen Andromeda, that race with the barbs, except it's got a fin in between the barbs too. And the barbs have a neurotoxin in them that paralyzes and can kill you, basically. Now, the main difference, I kind of wanted the Croata and the mermaids to be similar to each other, but different. Kind of like Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Which, if any of you say anything bad about Neanderthals, you'll be catching these fists, because Neanderthals are amazing. Don't even. Moving on. Back to mermaids and Croata. So I want them to be as though they were evolved from the same ancestor, then parted off, and the mermaids just survived better, like humans compared to the Neanderthals, where we interbred with them and bred them out. Fun little side note for you. So my mermaids, they're generally classically depicted. You have the beautiful people. Some of them have long hair, some of them don't, because not every guy likes long hair. And whenever you have male mermaids depicted, even when they have long hair, they don't have mermaid long hair. They have human dude from the Middle Ages, 17th century long hair. It's like shoulder length, max. Which, why? I mean, I like the fact that, we're going back to pop culture for a second here, the newest incarnation of Aquaman has hair. But, I mean, he was raised by a human, so I can understand why he would keep his hair shorter if, that's what Daddy was into or whatever. Moving on. Back to my mermaids. So they do still live basically at the bottom of the ocean, which that in of itself, I've seen addressed in some cartoons. One was the Teen Titans Justice League, Youth Justice. I'm butchering all these names, but I know it's in there somewhere. Cartoon where they had Meg actually shrink when she got into the water because the lower down pressures and whatnot. So, if we are to believe that mermaids can exist both at the bottom of the ocean and at the top, where they harass people, then we have to take some liberties with what their bodies are actually constructed out of, because they have to be able to withstand those deep, dark pressures. And there's also the eyes thing. Now, my solution for that is actually that the bottom of the ocean isn't quite as bottom of the ocean as you would think. It's still pretty far down there. And for lighting purposes, because it gets pretty damn dark down in the ocean. Thank you, cartoons, for never showing that. They use like luminescent fish and shit. You know? Little fish that glow. Which, again, is plausible. It's science fantasy. It doesn't have to all make sense. Because, space mermaids. That's the other thing. My mermaids, they aren't on Earth in this series. They're on a planet far, far away. So basically, space mermaids. Moving on. So, more or less, they would still function as mermaids. Now, the big problem I have with a lot of depictions of mermaids, which we're getting back into the pop culture references just for my references, is the idea that mermaids, regardless of the fact that boobs, so mammal, that they lay eggs. Come on, guys. How many creatures that big actually lay eggs and are purely aquatic? We're not talking alligators. Dolphins, whales, a lot of sharks, they all give live births. Why wouldn't mermaids? Is it because you can't see the birth hole? That you automatically assume they lay eggs for the males to then just germinate their sperm for? Like they're water trout? Guys, they're mermaids. They have boobs. The idea that they lay eggs would imply that there's a hell of a lot more of them. One. And two, that's just weird. Why would they lay eggs? Why would they spawn eggs? Just, come on, guys. So live births, because, yeah, it makes sense. Eggs. That really, really, really bothered me in Futurama. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I understand that the relationship probably wouldn't have worked out anyway. But it being the fact that she didn't have a sex hole and she expected him to wait for her to lay eggs, so that just didn't make any sense, Matt. It didn't make any sense. Anyway. Now, I've heard a few things from several writing friends and other friends about mermaid diet. That they would have to be vegetarian because fish are friends, not food. No. There is nothing stopping them from eating fish. In fact, I think, like humans, since they're usually depicted with our teeth, and not always the sharp and pointy ones. I've seen a few depictions of them with the sharp and pointy ones, and it makes my heart happy. But at the same time, I figured that they would probably be omnivores. Now, they most likely wouldn't have to cook their food because they live in the ocean. You find a hot spring to cook your food to eat it, or they eat a lot of sushi kind of thing, or sushi. I can't say Japanese words, but sushi is not actually raw fish. Sashimi? Oh, no. I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyone who likes Japanese culture and hates me now, I'm sorry. I can't pronounce words. I just... I can't. Anyway, so I see no problem with the idea that they would eat both plant matter and fish. Do I think that they would eat each other? No. No. No, for the same reason we don't eat each other. And why most species, for the most part, tend not to eat each other. Cannibalism is a thing in the animal kingdom, and it's usually bred out of desperation, but not always. Not always. Especially in the water. But, I don't think they would have any qualms eating fish, being that they are part fish. Because sharks are fish. They eat anything they can get their teeth into. More to the point. You can still have mermaids be underwater and not have a necessarily scientific answer for why they live there. Now, the transitioning between legs and fins, I do, my royal mermaids, the mermaids that are from royal lineages, so in that particular story, there are seven mermaid cities. And yes, Atlantis is one of them. But obviously it's not that Atlantis because it's on a different planet. Anyway, there's seven, and each of the mermaid cities has a monarch who, generally speaking, answers to another monarch. There's one high, and then you got 4 lower kings and queens, because equal opportunities. And then I got 2 offshoots that are different. They're separate. It's complicated politics. Go with it. Now, the royal families all have the ability to transition between the two. I don't have a real reason for why they can do this. It just happens. And I assumed a lot. There was a reason for it. The gods decided, we're going to do this. And it happened. That's the running theory. So, final note, because this video is getting long and you guys don't like my longer videos. Those of you that actually watch them, moving on, is in that particular story, my merfolk and the humans that live on this planet can actually interbreed. Technically, the Croata can also interbreed with the humans, but they prefer to not do that. Croata are fun. They're fun. But again, they can interbreed, and in fact, I have several that do. And they have some fun stories, which I'm not going to go into details for, because when I publish them, buy them, read them, you'll know what I'm talking about. But, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to if they are, in fact, mammals. And human-esque. Like, the DNA isn't that far off. And, yes, the offspring do actually produce fertile offspring on their own. There is reason for that, I guess. The gods are involved. I'm just gonna put that in there. The gods are involved. You can't write a story that has gods and not have the gods meddle, okay? That's what gods do. They meddle. So that's all my thoughts on mermaids. Unless we revisit this later on down the road once my jar of doom is empty once more. So, speaking of the jar of doom, Shake it up. Shake it up, shake it up. Nice and random, nice and random, nice and random. More randomness. All right. So you guys know, I am finding out what creature this is at the same time you are. I do this shit in one take, which you'd probably notice if you ever stop to actually look for the jump cut. Oh, that's going to be a fun. We're going to talk about fauns in the next video. Won't that be fun? Probably not for the nymphs, but... Well, okay, fair enough. That's the satyrs, but the fauns, right up there. They're right up there. All right, guys. I'm Beck Terry. Thank you for watching Mythical Creature Comforts. We'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell thing, and then apparently you have to then go into your settings, and if you want to get all the notifications for my video, change it to receive all notifications from just occasionally. Because YouTube's fun. Bye, guys. We'll see you next time.